Good morning. So today's talk is, how the topic is why do we feel so much emptiness in modern culture, and what can we do about it? And even when you're kind of doing all the right things, it's still just like we're just sort of devoid of meaning. So again, for you new listeners. These talks are intentionally slow. I stop and I take breaks. I pause, I breathe. I encourage you to do that with me. I want to challenge you to unplug from the constant addictive dopamine culture that is being thrown at us all the time. People trying to capture your attention with little, dings. One of the things that drives me bananas is on all the social media platforms and the Netflix and everything, they're constantly auto-playing everything and trying to grab your attention. So I'm actively lobbying against that by making these, not having flashy thumbnails, just a simple title, just a talk. It's just a talk. We're going to try to get back to the old slowing it down. Just slow everything down. Wisdom lives in slowness. Okay, so that's a preface. Probably one of the reasons it's so empty in our culture is the fast pace. What else? These talks really get going later on in the talks. So that's where you want to just sit with it, and the really nuggets come out later. All right, what else? These are for earth lovers. And people who are not fundamentalists. These are for, spiritual seekers, people who want success, people who are open to, the broader sort of modern day interpretation of reality and spirituality. It's not for Old Testament people. You're not gonna like this, because I'm gonna directly challenge your view of the world. Because it doesn't work and causes war and bloodshed and righteousness and demonization of others. Okay, so we got that out of the way. What else? All right, let's get back to the topic on hand. So the first thing that comes to mind about, this just this feeling of emptiness, for me it's community, So again, you Old Testament folks, or even New Testament folks, you can go onto your church community and then boom, you got instant community. And so for those of us who aren't in that world, that's one of the biggest missings. And that's, the Bible's not true. And the Torah is not true. And the Upanishads are not true. And the Quran is not true. It's literally impossible for all of them to be true. So somebody's wrong. And from my interpretation, they're all wrong. What they're right about is the symbolic wisdom that's embedded in all of those traditions. All right, I got traffic. It's 4th of July. I should be talking about patriotism today. But instead, I'm talking about why we feel emptiness. Okay. Maybe that's a type of patriotism. I'm working on 4th of July, so my patriotism today is to work, to stay working, because I have the freedom to work whenever I want, because I make my own rules. I am not dependent upon the state or the church or anybody else to tell me how to live. I get to live the way I want to live. It's my form of patriotism. All right, how are you a patriot today? Although you'll probably listen to this on non-4th of July day. All right, so back to community. So one of the reasons, so if you're feeling a lack of community, that's going to give you that sense of emptiness. And so you can go and if it's authentic for you, you could join a church and then boom, instant community, instant solutions to all of your problems. It's all right there, all cookie cutter developed 2,000 years ago. I guess I want to talk about religion today. It's really coming up. But how is that going to help you? Well, again, this talk is not for the religious folk who have drunk the Kool-Aid. It's not for them. It's for us agnostics, as thinkers, people who are trying to find a good way, and honoring all the ancient traditions, but not getting stuck in a dogmatic way in any of them. All right. So how do we find that community outside of a traditional church? Because you gotta have a community in order to feel a meaning, and you have to have. All right. So let me get to another another principle that really came up. One of the reasons, if you're feeling emptiness and you're doing everything right, is that you don't have a purpose that feels real to you and achievable and worthwhile. So, one of the reasons I make these videos is because it's kind of like my art. It's a part of my soul that yearns to be expressed. And I would keep making them even if nobody watched them. Of course, I want to have as much reach as possible because I'd like to have to do less cleaning out of septic tanks and more teaching other people, especially as my 56-year-old body starts breaking down. But this is a form of purpose for me. So this is purpose. This is some purpose-driven work, which gives me a sense of, which fights that emptiness. So what's yours? What's your purpose-driven work? Have you thought it through? Are you developing it? Do you need to develop it? Are you already clear what it is? Another thing that comes up a lot for me is like, is this actually going to make a difference? And does it really matter? So that's something that we all have to face. The way I resolve that is that in the realization that if this talk mattered to one person, then it matters. If I plant a tree on my homestead and it makes the ecosystem around that tree a little bit healthier, then it matters. We can't control the future. We can't control whether someone's going to start World War III, but we can try to do anything and everything that's possible for us to make an impact. So community and purpose. So if you're another reason, so the two reasons that I've landed on so far, that even if you're doing everything right, that you might still feel some emptiness in the modern world, is that if you're not in the dogmatic religious world, then you have to create your own spiritual community, and you need a spiritual community. I think most modern Westerners underestimate the need for a spiritual community. We kind of think we can just have these secular Platonic communities and maybe even just family communities, but you gotta have a spiritual community. Why do I say that? What I mean by spiritual, I think I need to define spirituality. So spirituality, it can mean a lot of things, but I'm just going to define it in a very simple way. It's a worldview. It's a worldview that gives you a common language that you can speak about the great mysteries of life and the great challenges of life in a common language. So it's like English or French or Swahili. If you can't speak the language, it's very difficult for you to find a sense of community. Around the world, they talk about these languages dying out in indigenous cultures. The cultures really die with the language. So language is the root of a cultural connection, and we all have to have a cultural connection. So you need a spiritual community that speaks your same language. And for me, I'm not going to go into the dogmatic world, and I'm not going to go into this new age, airy-fairy, fluffy, puffy world either. I have a very nuanced relationship with the new age, because I do believe in that that the new age and the old traditions, they all point to that's sort of a mystery and an energy that is real. And we just, in Joseph Campbell's world, the transcendent is transcendent. The best things that to talk about can't be talked about. The second best things are the things that we, that's like the art, and the third best things are the things that we try to talk about. I don't know if I got that quote exactly right, but you get the idea that it's a transcendent state that we're pointing to. So again, you can be lost in sort of a dogma of New Age spirituality, or you can be lost in a dogma of Old Age spirituality. So what's more interesting to me is finding a community of people in which we can talk about the metaphor, the meaning below the symbols, in like a Jungian context. So Jungian saw the archetypes, or Joseph Campbell and Jung both saw the archetypes behind the stories. So those archetypes behind the stories are real. They're real energies that are affecting you and I all the time. So I need a community of people like that I can speak to. And then that gives my life a sense of fullness and meaning. And then another, and then also having my purpose to teach and to help others and to help nature thrive, and to bring, more of a harmonious, peaceful, vital civilization on Earth. Those are my purposes. So for you, if you're feeling an emptiness and you're kind of doing all the right things, you're going to the, you're going out in the community and you're trying to do the right things. So just do a check and see, are you really having those conversations in a way that really works for you? Because you might find that the people that you're talking to, you're having to couch what you really want to say in terms that are acceptable to them. And you got to find some people that you can really talk to. So that would be one. And then also, you've got to be working to make this world to be the change that you want to see in the world. You have to do that. So whatever that looks like for you. And you don't have to be lofty and huge about it. You just it's a daily practice. So the daily practice is to make sure that you're trying to be that change that you want to see in the world on a daily basis. It could be as simple as, if you want to see more kindness in the world, that you spread some kindness to your neighbor or someone that you actually don't get along with. If you want to see peace in Israel and Gaza, then maybe you got to reach out to somebody who has ideologically opposite to you and give them an olive branch, like speak to them and say like, hey, I'm sorry that I haven't included you in my life, or I'd really like to understand you better. That's the root of peace, is trying to connect with your enemies and find a love for them. And when I say love, what I mean by love. Sorry, that was having a tough time getting that one out. What I mean by love is, defining love. That's a tough one. That's a big one. Well, love your enemies. So the teaching of Jesus, the only important teaching of Jesus is to love your enemies and to pull your own righteousness out of your mind before you attack your enemies. That's the only important teaching of Jesus. And yes, I'm going to stand by the only important teaching of Jesus. All the rest of it doesn't matter. That's the only thing that matters. Love your enemies. Love everybody. Release your own righteousness before you attack. Don't even attack your enemy. Just find love for your enemy. All right. And that in and of itself could be a pathway to meaning. If you're finding love for everybody, including your enemies, you can really find a lot of meaning and purpose in your life. All right. So that's the first couple of things: community, purpose. Another thing that here's a third element would be disconnection from nature. Civilization, people these days are so stuck on technology and civilization. Civilization is maximum 20,000 years old, maybe a little older than that. 10,000, 12,000 is what you get from most archaeological evidence, and maybe some more obscure evidence pointing towards maybe 20. But if you think about that in terms of the, I'm going to try to let this guy pass me because he's like so anxious to go. Oh, no, he's not going to go. All right. Okay. Let's see here. So people get so stuck on civilization, meaning like technology and government and policy. It's a drop in the bucket in who you are. So if you're not feeling like a deep connection, it's because it may be because you're too focused on this surface level techno politic type world. I did a funny. I brought it up in some other talks, and so I'm sorry if I'm repeating. Let me know if you're listening to this and I'm repeating myself and it's annoying you, because I don't want to be too repetitive. So, I had this realization in my meditation a few days ago that we are the sum total of, of the energy of the universe. Now that may sound vague, but let me drill it down a little bit farther. So you are all of your ancestors going back to the first cellular life form on Earth. Now I asked AI to estimate for me what was that total, and that total was, it was just an estimate, but they took 100 trillion births and lives of your direct ancestors to get to you. 100 trillion. So you are the combined wisdom of 100 trillion lives just in your body alone. Not to mention all of the human lives that came before you, all of those ancestors that, survived all of their life. And then also the accumulated wisdom of the funnel, so it's like you have 2 grandparents, 4 great-grandparents, 8 great-great-grandparents, and then it goes on from there, and it keeps funneling out. So you have all of these different entities inputting their life strategy into you. And so that wisdom lives inside of your body. And so here we are, trying to figure out how to have a meaningful life, and we're focused on this tiny fraction of 10 to 20,000 years maximum of civilization and technology. I mean, I guess you could call the first time that we got fire technology, so maybe it's 100,000 years, but even that, we're focused on this teeny tiny fraction of the amount of time that we have been alive as entities, our life, birth cycle, our birth death cycle. So if you're feeling a disconnect, it's because you're disconnected from nature. You're disconnected from your deep, fundamental, ancestral nature. Your 100 trillion lifetimes of nature that is embedded inside of you. All right, let's take a breath pause. This guy has been following me for a while. He's in a hurry. Okay, here we go. Round in this one-way, my little one-way street here. Oh yeah. Okay. So far, we have in reconnecting and finding that connected life, we've got, find a like-minded spiritual community. Get daily action on your purpose that's really enhancing life. Reconnect with nature and honor that deep natural wisdom inside of you. So how do you do that? How do you reconnect with nature? Well, the first thing I'm going to say, and this may sound strange, is meditation. So how would meditation reconnect with nature? And I mean specifically like a Vipassana style body scanning or breath awareness meditation. It pulls you out of your thinking mind and into your body. Even if your mind is racing, it doesn't matter. You're beginning that process. So, and I said this in a short I just made, the most powerful meditations are the ones that you sit down and you can't focus. Your mind is racing like a racehorse. And you're just sitting there and it's like, oh, I can't meditate, this isn't working. That is the most powerful meditation, because you have directly confronted the discomfort of the of your mind, of the training of your mind. Your mind is being trained to be addicted to constant stimulation. So when you sit with that wild franticness in your brain, then you're beginning to change that pattern. So that's huge. Maybe that's the only thing to take away from this. If you're really feeling the profound, feeling a deep, like an emptiness or a disconnect, just sit down and meditate. And meditate through the discomfort of your mind racing. You know, the only unsuccessful meditation is one that you chose not to do because you told yourself, you convinced yourself in your mind that it wasn't worthwhile, that you didn't have time. That's the only unsuccessful meditation. If you sit down for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, for as long as you can, and your mind is racing like a racehorse, and all you're doing is trying to sit still, you have begun to break the beast. That beast of which, again, I'm going to say it one more time because it does bear repeating. The more modern society is heading in a direction in which you're going to be more and more frazzled in your mind. And so meditation is more and more important every day. That you've got to do it. If you do nothing else, meditate and confront the craziness in your mind. And don't worry about it. I mean, I can give you more techniques, just follow the breath. I'm not really into the counting and all that other stuff. And you can do that too, but the most important thing is to sit down and do it. And the thing about meditation is the benefits accrue in the subconscious. So a lot of times it's hard to feel them. Don't ever judge your meditation. Don't ever judge it like, oh, that was a really good meditation, or oh, that was a really bad meditation. Every time you meditate is a good meditation. I hope that was helpful. Please leave comments. Have a great day.